Now, joining us in the studio to go over these latest developments is Dr. Jung-yeop, a research fellow at the Sejong Institute. Dr. thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Now, let's start with that Moon-Trump summit. It seems to have gone quite smoothly. They said they will work towards making the North Korea-U.S. summit happen, but Trump was far more cagey on whether it will actually happen. He suggested that it might be delayed. What was your takeaway from the Moon-Trump meeting?
First, the positive aspect of the summit this time is that once again, two leaders have confirmed that two countries will go together and sharing the goal of the denuclearization of North Korea. And as you just mentioned, that it is a bit surprising that President Trump took the questions from the media when it was supposed to be a private meeting between two leaders, and answered the question. In answering the question, he mentioned that he has a doubt on North Korea's attitude on denuclearization, and it might not work out as it planned. That means that the summit on June 12th might not going to happen. And he also said that it can be delayed if it can be delayed. So he cast the doubts on the happening of the June 12th summit. So we have to see what kind of discussions will go on between North Korea and the United States in like 3 weeks.
So those discussions, I'm sure the US and North Korea are having behind-the-scenes discussions about the denuclearization and the agreement they're going to reach at the summit. But one thing, interesting comment that Trump made at this press briefing, this impromptu press briefing with Moon, was he was asked whether he would go for an incremental or an all-in-one, big deal style of denuclearization deal. He said, quote, "It would certainly be better if it was all-in-one, but does it have to be? I don't think I want to totally commit myself." Now, how should we take that comment? Should we see it as Trump backtracking from demanding CVID, or is it just an offhand remark that he made to the press and something we shouldn't take too seriously?
I think CVID is the goal, and what President Trump mentioned today is how to achieve the CVID. Because China and South Korea's concern was that while we are sharing the goal of CVID, but how to achieve CVID might be different. So when President Trump's national security advisor, Mr. John Bolton, mentioned Libyan model, many people thought that United States is going to reward North Korea's denuclearization after international community confirmed that there is no more nuclear weapons on North Korea and no more nuclear program in North Korea. That means that nuclear denuclearization has to be done before United States and international community rewards North Korea in economic terms. So I think that the incremental terms or whether all-in-one method is about how to reward North Korea if North Korea moves to the direction of denuclearization. So I really don't think that United States is going to hold the rewarding North Korea when North Korea is moving in the direction of denuclearization. So once U.S. can confirm that North Korea is in the direction of denuclearization, U.S. can give reward, whether it's a lift of sanctions or ease of sanctions or giving some economic aid. They can give by the progress of the denuclearization process. So I don't think that President Trump is backing off from the goal of CVID, but I think he shows some flexibility of how to achieve the CVID.
One of the promises that Trump seems to also be making, as we saw in that last report, was the guaranteeing the safety of the North Korean regime. Now, he seemed to be very emphatic about that. Do you think this is what North Korea wanted to hear, and will it help with the negotiations, do you think?
First, I think we have to be clear that what President Trump mentioned today is Kim's safety, and he reiterated that he will be safe. So considering the character of the nature of the North Korean regime, Kim Jongun might be the North Korean regime itself. However, we cannot say that in democratized system, the leader's safety is not same as the regime or system's safety. So when President Trump mentioned that Kim is going to be safe. I'm not sure whether he will be different. He differentiated the difference between Kim Jong-un himself and the regime itself. So even though U.S. policy is not to change the regime, North Korean regime, but U.S. has never said that they are going to guarantee the regime itself. So I think that we have to be very careful in interpreting what President Trump said today. And I really don't think that North Korea has requested North Korean regime's survival in exchange for its giving up nuclear weapons. So, I think that North Korea has never requested that kind of rewarding formally. So we have to see what North Korea really wants if they are going to denuclearize itself.
Trump said that the North Korea-U.S. summit, will happen eventually if it doesn't happen this time on June 12th. That's what he seemed to imply. But his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, had a very different tone and said that later the summit is still on track for June 12th. What is going on here? Who do we have to listen to here at this position right now?
Actually, it's going to be ultimately President Trump's call, even if Secretary Pompeo said it's going to be on track. So we hope and we have a reason to believe that it's still not canceled, and we have to see that what kind of discussions will be going on between the United States and North Korea to finally confirm that the meeting between Trump and Kim will finally going to happen. Because now U.S. has a lot of skepticism on North Korea's sincerity on denuclearizing itself. I believe that United States has seen some progress in North Korea in dealing with North Korea by two visits by Secretary Pompeo in Pyongyang. But very recent announcement by North Korea since May 16th, the negative announcement on CVID and negative announcement on Ambassador John Bolton made the United States and the President Trump to think twice on the sincerity of North Korea's willingness to denuclearize itself. So I think we have to see until we can confirm the meeting, whether the meeting will be held or not.
The U.S. President also made another passing comment, another passing allegation, should we say, that Chinese President Xi Jinping has exerted some influence on Kim Jong-un's to change Pyongyang's attitude towards Washington. Is this allegation fair, do you think?
So one of the concerns that U.S. government has in this process was that China might work as a spoiler of the event, because China's strategic interest might be keeping the status quo on Northeast Asia, and denuclearization of North Korea is actually changing the status quo. So U.S. had a concern that China wants to keep the status quo. That means China is going to embolden the North Korea, that North Korea is not going to actually give up the nuclear weapon. So I think that from what President Trump mentioned before, that North Korea has shown to the United States that it's willing to discuss with the United States about the denuclearization of North Korea. But suddenly, after the second visit of Kim Jong-un to China, North Korea's attitude has been changed. That is why President Trump argued that China's role is influencing North Korea in a negative way.
Now, another major development that came out today was, of course, the South Korean journalists have now finally been given the green light to witness the shutdown of the Punggye-ri nuclear test site. They certainly kept the South Korean press waiting to the last minute. But what do you think made Pyongyang change their mind about this decision? Was it possibly something that came out of the U.S.-South Korea summit with Moon and Trump? Or was it just North Korea trying to make some sort of statement that they're reminding them that this path necessarily won't be easy right now?
There was no positive element for North Korea after the Moon-Trump summit this time. It is for sure that President Moon tried to encourage President Trump about the summit, but no like tangible word came out from the President Trump about on North Korea's like safety or economic benefits or the process of denuclearization. So I think that the bigger impact actually came from South Korea's public opinion. South Korean public opinion turned back toward North Korea's decision this time that after Panmunjom Declaration on April 27th, many South Koreans believed that North Korea's attitude would be different from the past, but the way that North Korea treated South Korean government and South Korean media was not different from the past. So like now South Korean public has a second thought on North Korea's changing behavior. I think that might have a bigger impact than the President Moon and President Trump summit this time.
It did seem they were being a little bit petty almost towards the South Korean media, the South Korean press. At least this means that the shutting down of the Punggye nuclear test site is going to happen then?
I believe so. The shutting down of the Punggye nuclear test site was not a part of deal between North Korea and the international community or between North Korea and South Korea. North Korean leader Kim Jongun wanted to show its willingness to move in the denuclearization by unilaterally deciding that he's going to shut down the Punggye test site. So I think that that means that North Korea is not just calling off the meeting between President Trump and Kim Jong-un in June. So he's going to show to the world that they are the one who can be worked with.
Now, President Moon today, he also said that he expects the inter-Korean summit, the high-level, not the summit, sorry, the high-level talks to conclude restart after the 25th. Now, they were originally scheduled for last week, as I'm sure you're well aware. Like, Pyongyang, of course, cancelled it at the last minute, citing the Max Thunder joint military drills. Now, Max Thunder will be ending around the 25th, so is it just coincidence, or does President Moon know something that we don't, and that he's prepared to reveal that North Korea is willing to come back to talks?
We don't know yet, and I'm not sure whether North Korean secretary told our government that they are interested in resuming the talks after 25th. But one thing for sure is that after the Max Thunder drills, that it will be easier for North Korean government to justify their changing behavior. So since they called off the meeting and citing the Max Thunder was the reason, it's difficult for them to resume the talks while the Max Thunder drills are still continuing. So I think that President Moon's expectation is that after the Max Thunder drill is done, then North Korea can have some like saving face or justifying their changing the behavior to resume the talks with the South Korea.
Well, thank you, Professor. That's all the time we have for you today. Thank you for coming in and sharing your thought.
Thank you.